First story. My wife left me and filed for divorce, believing my son's false accusations of me saw our dog, outing me as an abuser after I caught my son saying our dog, but forgave him not to ruin his life. Now my wife regrets everything and wants to reconcile after our dog attacked our son after he tried to saw it again. But I took my dog and divorced her. Okay, for obvious reasons, this is a throwaway account. So, I'm not even sure how to start here. The last couple of weeks, my dog's 7-year-old lab has been acting noticeably different. I guess I could describe it as distant and even depressed. He is normally an extremely outgoing and happy dog, very playful and energetic, etc. But starting about 2 weeks ago, he started acting very withdrawn and nervous around people, even his own family. At first, I kind of brushed it off as feeling under the weather. But after about a week and a half, I decided maybe he needed to see a vet. I got him in yesterday, and after an examination, the vet told me that he believes the dog has been saw. His anus had slight damage in a way that was consistent with that sort of thing. He said he couldn't really imagine that his injuries could have come about any other way. So already, I'm pretty upset and sort of freaking out. Who would do this sort of thing to a dog? I thought about all of the people who had access to the dog in my backyard. Gardeners crossed my mind, my neighbors, etc. The only people that live in the house are my wife, myself, and our teenage son. I came home and thought about it for a while. I had this really ugly sinking feeling in my stomach about the possibility that it could have been my son. I decided to look around in his room. I didn't really know what I was expecting to find, and I didn't really find anything in there that screamed guilty until I decided to check his browser history. I found he had been on a bestiality forum recently, and on a site with pictures of that sort of thing. I felt like I was going to throw up. Now I know that this isn't definitive proof of anything, but it sure doesn't look good. The more I think about it, the more I am convinced my son has been saw our dog. I haven't told my wife yet or done anything about it. I have not left him alone with the dog since. I am totally confused and upset, and I don't really know how to proceed with this. Reddit, please help. The TLDR vet says my dog has been saw. He found some suggestive bestiality material on his computer, suspecting my saw family dog. Edit. Thank you for all your advice to those of you who are serious. I understand this seems like a joke to some of you, but it's not to me, so for those of you who gave real advice, thank you. I think I'm going to take your advice and confront him about it privately, without involving my wife. It is not going to be an easy conversation, but it has to happen. My only worry is the possibility that he isn't guilty of this and somebody else did it. I guess then we still need to talk about what I found on his computer anyway. Ugh. FML. Thank you for being there for me, Reddit. Edit 2. Okay, my son just got home. I'm going to have the conversation with him when I can get a moment alone, and I will come back and let you guys know what happened. Edit 3. Okay, I just spoke to my son. Before I get into our talk, let me quickly say thank you all again for your incredible advice and support. There were a lot of really helpful suggestions in here, and I took some of your advice. Anyway, our family had dinner and did our usual nighttime stuff. My wife and I watched TV. My son was in his room after dinner like all teenagers are, and my dog, obviously, was with me. I waited for my wife to go to bed, which felt like forever because I was so nervous. But she finally did about an hour ago, and I went into my son's room to have the talk. I basically said, listen, I noticed the dog has been acting weird. I took him to the vet, and I found out someone had sodomized him. Any ideas about what might have happened? I looked at my son, and he seemed ever so slightly nervous, but pretended to know nothing about it. I expected this, so I brought up the sites I found on his computer. Naturally, this made him pretty upset, and he got really indignant at the thought that I snooped around on his computer. Fair enough, I get it. But I got him back to the point and tried to be as understanding and fatherly as I could, and just told him that whatever happened, I was not going to judge him, and he wasn't going to be punished. I just needed to know the truth. After about 10-15 minutes of this, he finally breaks down and admits that he put the handle of a hairbrush, as well as his fingers into the dog, a few times during the day last week. He said he wasn't trying to hurt him, and he stopped when the dog, at one point, freaked out. He said he didn't think he hurt it that badly, and he was too embarrassed to tell us or do anything about it. I believed him in this, but he also didn't give a very satisfactory answer as to why exactly he would do this in the first place. I have to admit, either way, that I was glad on some level to hear that he wasn't actually having sex with the dog. So basically, we agreed that I wouldn't tell his mom, but that we would find a reason to tell her that he needs to see a therapist for a bit. I know I told him I wouldn't tell his mother, but the more I think about all of this, the more I think I may eventually have to go back on that promise. As for now, the dog is staying with the family. And obviously I made him swear up and down that he would not touch the dog like that again under the threat of severe consequences. It's too early to tell if he feels remorse or is just humiliated. It's hard to say. It was very uncomfortable for both of us, but especially for my son. I'm sure we can all imagine. Thank you all again so incredibly much for your support, advice, understanding, and love for both the dog and my son. I have to admit, some of you even made me laugh at a few things I didn't want to. Thanks again, Reddit. Edit 4. Due to the outpouring of concern and help from you guys, I will update in a week or so and let you know what's happened. Today I located a therapist who specializes in teenagers. I made a preliminary appointment for my son to go in and talk to her. I disclosed to her some of the issues without getting into too much detail. For now, my son does not know this, but it will be helpful for her to have some idea of what we're dealing with. My dog is still not in the best of spirits, but seems to be making progress. I went for a walk with him today, and he was more playful than he has been the past week. I've been trying to be extra good to him as well, and the love seems to be helping slowly bring the happiness back into his eyes. I can't say I'm still not a little peeved about what happened, but I feel like showing my son that I am too upset might be damaging right now. I think we just need to find out why he thought this was okay. As for the brush handle, some of you bring up a good point. I should ask him to throw whatever brush he has away. For some reason, that didn't even cross my mind. Yikes. Anyway, I'll give you all an update on the situation in a week. Thanks again. Update. I am the father and Redditor whose son saw our dog with a hairbrush 2 months ago. He's done it again and doesn't know what to do. Please help. Alright, well, Reddit helped me a lot last time. Maybe you guys can do it again. Here's the original post about my discovery that my son had abused our family dog. Well, this morning I caught my son in the backyard holding onto Colby's genitals while playing tug-of-war with him. Granted, this isn't soft, and the dog seemed to be okay. But my son was basically grabbing and massaging the dog's privates as he held him in place under the guise of a tug-of-war game. Obviously, I stormed outside and grabbed him in anger, and we had a very serious and angry talk. He had promised me to never treat the dog in any remotely inappropriate way after our last incident. I put him in his room for the rest of the day. My wife is still at work, and I do not know what to do. I am at my wit's end. Apparently, therapy has not been working. Reddit. How do I deal with this? I think I have to tell my wife now, which is not exciting since she has been in the dark about the SAW incident for 2 months. I am not sure how to deal with all of this. You guys really helped me last time. Any advice is appreciated. Thank you. TLDR. My son saw our dog Colby again. Not sure what to do. Update. Okay, well, that didn't go so well. My wife got home not too long after I put this up. I told her pretty much right off the bat that I messed up pretty badly, and that I found out 2 months ago that our son had admitted to me that he saw the dog with a hairbrush handle and his fingers. I told her that this was why I had wanted him in therapy, and that he wasn't comfortable with her knowings, and I made him a fatherly promise under the condition that he never did anything like that again. Needless to say, she was pretty shocked and upset. Then I told her what I saw today, and she got even more upset. It went from a few minutes of anger to tears. She is pretty pissed off at me and pretty upset about our son and Colby, obviously. I feel like SHT at this point for having kept her in the dark. She told me she felt very betrayed, and after calling me some choice names and saying she was confused, she grabbed her purse and just left the house. I have no idea where she went, but I didn't try to stop her. She was very, very upset. I feel like the worst husband or father in the world right now. I went in to speak to my son, and he was pretty unhappy too since he could hear everything obviously. He was in no hurry to come out of his room for that. He isn't very happy that I told his mom about today and the incident before, but after speaking with him briefly, I think he understands that it was necessary. So basically, my family was torn apart today over a dog. I need a beer or something. As for rehousing the dog, I suspect we'll probably have to do that. But there's a lot we need to sort through first. I'm sure there will be an uncomfortable family meeting in the future. Thanks for the advice and for being there. Reddit. Update 2. Wow. Front page. Thanks for the outpouring of support. I hope nobody I know is a Redditor. I didn't quite expect this to get so big. Hahaha. Well, anyway, my wife is still gone. I tried to call her on her cell just one time, and she didn't pick up, so I got the message. I've just been in the yard with Colby on the computer, having a beer. This is crazy. I wish fatherhood or marriage came with a guidebook. I guess Reddit is kind of close, right? Well, except for the odd people saying, rehome the sun, and all of those super helpful suggestions. I'll keep you updated as the night goes on. Hopefully, my wife will actually return at some point. As for my son, all he's done is make a hot pocket and go back to his room. Basically, just being a teenager in trouble. Edit. Since a lot of you are curious, my son is 15 years old. I posted this in a comment in the original thread. I thought I had included it in the main post, but I realize I did not. I hope that helps. Update 3. Okay, well, my wife called me to say she is staying at her sister's house tonight to clear her head. She has calmed down a bit, but she said she doesn't think she can handle all of this tonight. I said I understood and apologized profusely for not telling her sooner. I tried to explain what another Redditor mentioned about how the first incident was a weird male adolescent sexual thing, and he was embarrassed and thought he could confide in me and trust me. She was pretty unmoved by that argument and thinks I should have told her. I guess I was wrong. When we got off the phone, I said, "I love you," and she just hung up. This is probably up there as my worst day in recent memory, at least since the day I found out my son saw my dog the first time. As for my son, I have seen no sign of him since he made his hot pocket. However, for about 40 minutes now, I've been hearing what I am guessing is dubstep coming from his room. I don't know. I'm too old to even want to know. Colby will sleep in my room tonight, and hopefully tomorrow the wife will be calm enough to discuss what to do with him. She loves that dog a lot, but I am not sure how she is going to want to move forward with all of this. For my part, I can already think of 2 families we know that would probably be happy to take the Colbster. Jesus, what a day. Thanks to Reddit. Update. A lot of Redditors were very supportive and helpful with this delicate situation, and I received many letters offering to take in our dog Colby after the second incident. It was really touching to have so many people reach out. I have also gotten a lot of messages asking for an update on what has happened since the last post. Well, a hell of a lot has happened to my family since then, and none of it has been very good. Basically, after hiding the first incident from my wife, I felt obligated to tell her about it when I caught my son saw Colby again. It turns out that not telling her the first time around was probably the worst decision I have ever made. My wife did not take the news well at all. As I mentioned in my last post, she left the house to stay with her sister for a few days and wouldn't pick up my calls. The breach of trust and the fact that I hid something so serious from her really pissed her off. To be honest, our marriage has already been pretty rocky the last year or two, for reasons I'd prefer not to get into. So this was just one more bump in the road that our relationship really didn't need. To be fair, I was only trying to be a good father to my son, and I thought I could keep the initial incident between him and me to protect him from further humiliation. It would have been okay if he had kept his word that he would not abuse the dog ever again. Unfortunately, he did not, and I had to involve his mom. Admittedly, I should have just done that from the beginning. So after staying at her sister's house for a few days, my wife came home, and we got into several arguments over the next week or so about our son and what to do about this. And of course there was plenty of me being painted as the bad guy for not including her on a major parenting issue. I decided to take Reddit's advice that we should start looking for a new home for Colby since he obviously wasn't going to be safe with us anymore. My wife did not like this idea, and after several more arguments, I came to find out that she suspects our son never even abused the dog to begin with. She tells me that she has spoken to our son about it, and he has denied ever doing anything. So basically, I had my son deny he ever saw the dog, and my wife is now pissed off because she is hearing 2 conflicting stories from us. She even brought up in the heat of our argument that she thinks, if anything, I saw the dog, which, as you can imagine, made me absolutely furious. So, to make a long story short, we did not resolve anything and have only become more embittered with each other. This, along with a few other marital issues, finally led to my wife asking for a trial separation about 3 weeks ago. My son has decided to live with her, and so I have moved out to a friend's house temporarily while I try to figure out what we are going to do next. I know you guys are probably going to be pissed about this, but Colby is still living with my wife and son. I tried to take him with me, but this only led to more friction and infuriating jabs from my wife. Why so you can saw him again and blame it on your son, you sick F, etc. This whole thing has just become a complete nightmare. I have tried to confront my son about denying what he did to his mom, but he won't even talk to me and has just started taking the stance that I'm crazy. I guess he thought he saw a way out of all of this and decided to just throw his dad under the bus. That is probably the most hurtful part of this entire ordeal, to be honest. I'm used to having my wife be a complete B to me at this point. But the betrayal by my son, whom I was only trying to help, is like a knife in my heart. That being said, I have to remind myself that he is just a kid in an awkward situation, and try not to hold it against him. After all, if my wife and I wind up with a divorce down the road, he is going to be the only thing I love. So I am trying not to do irreparable damage to our relationship. I feel like I've done too much damage to this family. And all of this over a goddamn Labrador. I wish I could say my priority at this time was still Colby's safety, but I would be lying. My relationship with my family is in tatters, and I don't know what to do to fix it. Obviously, I would still like to see Colby rehomed as well, but I feel like I need to focus on fixing my relationship with my wife and son so my life can go back to normal. So, Reddit, I know this is kind of a unique situation, but I'm sure there have got to be some of you out there who have had something similar happen to you. Any advice for a dad who is losing control? TLDR, my wife has decided to separate from me, and she took the dog and my son. I feel like I'm losing control of my life, and it's all because I tried to help my son after he saw our dog. Update. Well, I guess let's start at the beginning. I know most of you might not know my story, so here's my original trilogy of posts detailing what has happened with my family over the last several months. To put a long story short, I discovered my teenage son had saw our family dog, Colby, with a hairbrush and his fingers a few months ago. After I confronted him about it, he confessed and promised never to do it again. And in return, I agreed to keep it between him and me and not tell his mom. A while later, I discovered my son had reneged on his promise to me and had abused the dog again. This time I felt I had to bring my wife into the matter, and when I told her, it all blew up in my face. She couldn't believe her son would do that sort of thing, and she eventually got it into her head, somehow, that it must have been me who abused the dog. A short while after telling her about these incidents, we separated, and she wound up with the dog and my son, who, when confronted, went back and denied that he had ever done anything to the dog, despite admitting to me that he had and me actually catching him in the act a different time. So the last time I updated, I had been living at a friend's house, while my wife and son and Colby stayed at the family house. My wife was somehow convinced that I was the abuser of our dog, and that I was blaming it on my son, which is maybe the most confusing and infuriating feeling I have ever had. I tried calling my son for several days in the hope that I could convince him to come clean and help get us on the road to fixing our family. He did not pick me up, nor did he ever call me back. So about 2 weeks ago, I decided to show up at the house when I knew they would all be there. I knocked on the door, and my wife would not answer it. I admit I kind of lost it and started shouting and pounding on it, and she eventually came outside, where a yelling match ensued between her and me in the front yard. I finally left after she just put her hands over her ears and started yelling, "Dog effer, dog effer, dog effer," over and over again to try to humiliate me in front of the neighborhood. As I walked back to my car, fuming, I looked back at the house and saw my son staring at me from the second-story window with a blank look on his face. I stared at him and shook my head in disappointment, but he didn't change his expression. I have to admit, that really broke my heart and pissed me off. So fast forward to just a couple days ago. I am at work, nearing the end of my day, when suddenly my phone rings, and it's my wife. I pick it up, and she's sobbing and obviously very upset. She tells me that Colby has bitten my son, and he has gone to the hospital to get stitches. She says Colby bit him in the lower abdomen twice. She doesn't know what to think. Obviously, I know exactly what happened. I could tell she finally knew I was right. Colby would never bite anyone unprovoked. He is an incredibly friendly dog, and has no history of biting or being aggressive at all. When we got off the phone, I felt this rage building inside of me. I felt like it was finally time for this SHT to end. Colby had stood up for himself against my son, who had betrayed both of us. I couldn't prove it, but I just know my son was abusing the dog again, and I felt responsible for having left him alone with Colby all of these times. It was like Colby finally lashed out in desperation after having nobody there to protect him. I felt sick to my stomach for having abandoned my dog with my kid, who obviously doesn't give a F about me or any of us, as long as he can keep getting away with SHT. I left work and went straight to the family home. This time, my wife answered the door and let me in. I went straight to my son's room, where he was lying down and watching TV. He looked at me in surprise, and I told him not to talk. I basically said, "I know what you did. You can deny it, and you can blame me all you want, but you and I both know what happened. I am taking the dog, and if I ever find out you go near an animal like this again, I will report you to the police. I don't care if you are my son. This is disgusting and unfair, and I raised you better." Obviously, I said more than that. But that was the gist of it. He was extremely uncomfortable. Then I went downstairs and out the back door to get the dog. I put a leash on Colby and walked him back through the house, and my wife stopped me and told me she was sorry. We talked for about 5 minutes, and we both got a little weepy. She asked me to forgive her, which I told her I did. She then invited me to stay at the house, to which I said no. I'm not ready for that, and Colby deserved better. I had already let him down too many times. I left her crying in the house and put Colby in the car. We drove back to my friend's place, where I am staying. I've since been looking for a small apartment with a short-term lease that accepts dogs, as I have decided that I am not going to move back in with my family. At least not in the immediate future. Colby is finally with me and is safe, and I need time to think about what our next move should be. I know that asking my friend to house me, and now a dog, is pushing the bounds of his good grace, so this is what has to happen. A lot of you have written to me asking for updates, and I apologize for not getting back to all of you. Mostly, I had no significant changes in the situation until all of this. But I thought you all deserved to know that the dog is safe. However, I still do not know what I am going to do about my son and wife. Do you think I should report him as is? The more I think about it, the more I am sure he will probably just do this again. Colby might be safe, but I am still, despite all he's done to me, worried about my son. He is a minor, so legally, I am still responsible for him. What sort of thing does one do for somebody who does this? In the comments. Things are better. Colby, sadly, passed away about a year ago. But he was getting up there for a dog his size, and it was of natural causes. I'm not sure I want to talk much about my son, but I'll say he and I are much better than we were in 2012, when the incident took place. It's not something we talk about with one another. I hope and pray he no longer fantasizes about or concerns himself with that type of behavior. If he does, I wouldn't know about it since he lives on his own now. As for my ex-wife, well, she wound up in therapy after losing her job. Honestly, we don't communicate much, but I do not hear good things about what she's up to now. There are rumors of drugs and certain favors, etc. I don't really want to get into it for my son's sake. As for me, I've been with a new woman for a few years now, and things are much better. She has a son as well, and we get along just fine. I have to say that life is funny. Who would have ever thought my son putting something in our dog's behind would lead us all down such strange paths? Sometimes I wonder what life would be like if I had never caught him doing it. But who knows? Life is crazy, folks. Love your dogs. Commented on Best of Redditor Updates. Hey everyone, I'm amazed that this caring community came together to help me back in 2012 and is still concerned about me today. Thank you all for the kind words, the support, and, of course, the offers to adopt Colby. I kept him until the end. For those who are interested, I remarried a lovely new woman with adult children who are supportive and wonderful people. I'd prefer not to update my son. Occasionally, I see these old posts about Colby surface on Reddit. It's astounding to see so many people emotionally invested in that wonderful old Labrador. The updates began because people wanted to know how he was doing, and if he was safe. I said it in a previous update, but for anyone who missed it, Colby passed away several years ago. But I still keep his collar and tags in a desk drawer in my home. He was a good boy, and I want people to know he enjoyed the last few years of his life in safety and comfort. Second story. OP caught his wife cheating with her boss, then threatened to kill herself if he left her. It turns out she's been planning to escrow him in the divorce court with lies and take full custody of their kids. So he divorced her sorry arse, got her fired, and is trying to be the best father he can be. I recently discovered that my wife of 5 years and partner of 8 years have been having an affair with her boss. We have 2 children together, and I'm completely at a loss for what to do. She is in the military, so we have all of our healthcare through her. I'm terrified of losing all of our benefits, but I can't forgive what I found on her phone when I went through it. The person she got caught with isn't the only guy she was talking to and flirting with. There were 3-4 other men on her phone that I found her flirting with. I know she deletes her messages, so there are more than I have been able to find. When I confronted her, she said she was going to end herself. She is now in a psychiatric facility for 2 weeks, and I'm alone with the kids, trying to handle everything on my own. I'm currently a full-time student and have been struggling with getting my assignments in on time and taking care of everything else. She keeps saying she is sorry and doesn't want to live without me, but I know she is still lying to me about things she doesn't know I have proof of. I'm just spiraling all over the place and haven't had a chance to process everything since confronting her last week, since I've been taking care of the kids. I don't know what to do. A voice in my head just keeps telling me I never should have confronted her. Another keeps telling me I should just try to move on. And another is telling me I can never forgive someone who hurts me like this. I don't know what to do, and I just need support or advice. I want to be strong enough to leave, but I'm so afraid. Edit. Y'all, I just wanted to say this is the best effing subreddit I've ever found. I found this place a few days ago when a person posted in another sub of their story to get enough karma to post here. I was effing spiraling an hour ago when I made the post, and you all are helping me feel so much stronger. I really needed all this support, and I appreciate everything everyone has said. Thank you. Comments. Sad second 9646. I'm sorry you're going through this crap. Did you report her superior officer yet? Why should he get away with having a hand in destroying your family? And for the health insurance, I believe she would have to at least carry your children. Are you thinking she will lose all her insurance? OP. I did report him, and he has been arrested so far. She was also arrested and will likely be kicked out, losing her medical benefits because of this too. That's one of the hardest parts. Update. I just wanted to update everyone since this community has been extremely supportive, and I've had a few people reach out. Before my wife checked into the psychiatric hospital, we had talked about doing things amicably and even going to counseling to try and save our marriage. She was released this week on Wednesday, but had, for the week prior, gone radio silent. No calls to check on the kids, no calls to check on me, or anything else. When she finally did call, it was a brief 2-minute phone call where she asked if she got anything in the mail. And when I said no, she hung up. That, for me, was what finally set me over the edge. I just kept thinking, I'm out here trying to take care of all our bills, watch where I'm spending money, cut back on non-essentials, get the kids to their extracurricular activities, and figure out how I'm going to survive because I was the full-time student/stay-at-home parent. Meanwhile, she is just doing whatever, and her boss is down the street, just cozy in bed, not worried about what they did to my children's and my own lives. So I contacted my attorney and told him to start the paperwork, and I wanted primary custody, child support, and the house. He told me I had an extremely strong case, and after a nice retainer of $10,000, I started down the divorce road. When my wife was released from the hospital, she came back to the house, and we had a long talk about our relationship and moving forward. I told her if she was serious about reconciling, then she needed to prove to me she was willing to put some skin in the game. From all accounts I've heard, she was planning on screwing me in divorce court in a couple of months if she hadn't been caught and running off with this guy. I let her know I was told as much and told her, from my perspective, you were planning on hurting me as much as you could, but the dice didn't roll in your favor, and now you are looking for security because you are in serious trouble. I told her to find an apartment, and we have 60 days for divorce to be finalized in our state. We could try marriage counseling, but I need to protect myself so I can be the best dad possible for my children. If she wanted to fix things, she needed to show me that she wasn't planning on ruining my life and give me the space I needed to heal. Maybe somewhere down the road, therapy can fix things internally for me and possibly between us. But for right now, I know she is still withholding information, and she is still lying. I held her hand when she was sick and needed infusions at the hospital. I carried her to bed on the nights she was in too much pain to walk, and it wasn't enough for her. She chose what she did, and now she is dealing with the consequences. Her family came out to watch her for a few days when she got released, and they are obviously taking her side with things. She either manipulated them, or, more likely, the entire family is just ethically bankrupt. When the process server gave her the paperwork, she tried taking the kids, but I told her she couldn't. Her family tried blaming me and telling me I was messed up for doing this, but I told them I had a right to react, which I chose in response to what she did. She took pretty much everything of hers from the house and left last night, and it's been radio silent since. I'm writing this as my kids play with their toys in the other room. My assignments have all been turned in on time. I'm still holding a 4.0 GPA. The laundry is almost done. The dishes are drying, and dinner is already set for tonight. I've made every practice for them in the last 2 weeks, and I've kept the house clean and even found some time for myself last Friday night. I don't know who will read this message, but I just wanted to tell you it can be done. I have no idea how I'm going to make it moving forward, but I'm going to. To all the beautiful people who messaged me when I needed it, and the people who took time out of their nights, the last few weeks to help me when I was a mess of anger, grief, and depression, thank you. The people here gave me the push I needed to stand up for myself, and not accept living in hell to stay with someone who only loved the things I provided for them and never me. This is all far from over, And when I have more information, I'll post it here so someone in the future can find it and know things can be okay even if it hurts now. I leave this post with some of the best advice I've gotten in the last 2 weeks. You aren't in love with her. You are in love with a lie she showed you to get what she wanted. Take the time to grieve the loss of the relationship. The person you thought you knew is gone, and it's okay to not be okay about that. Better to face the poison today on your own terms than it is to hide from it and let it slowly kill you for the rest of your life. Comments. Bella_Rose36. Does her family know? Or will you eventually tell them? It stinks the way that they are treating you. If she was arrested, charged with the affair with her boss, and fired, wouldn't her family get information about this? Do the kids know what's going on? Did they see their mom when she came to get her stuff? I'm happy that you're getting through this while trying to keep sane at the same time. Completing university courses plus taking care of your kids, the house, bills, and yourself is a tall order. And you're doing great. With the voice of Tony the Tiger, lol. OP. Her mom and her sister are here right now. I've told both of them about the affairs and that she is in serious trouble, but that was about it. I asked her if she went into details with them, and she said no, so I'm sure she is manipulating them. If it wasn't for my kids, I would already have cut them out of my life. If they continue acting as they are, that will probably happen, unfortunately, because they are already showing signs of poisoning the kids. I doubt they will ever hear from the military since they wouldn't look, and the military wouldn't reach out like that. As far as the kids go, they were kept mostly out of the way watching a movie while she packed. They don't really understand what's going on yet because they are young, 3 and 5. For the last 2 weeks, Mom was at the doctor since she always had medical appointments anyway. Today she is at her sister's house. But that answer won't work forever. I wish she had stopped to think about what she was going to do to the kids before she decided to sleep with her boss. Because I have no idea how to explain to my kids that Mom and Dad can't live together anymore. I always made sure my kids knew my wife was the love of my life. When my daughter said, "Mommy is your true love. You are going to be with her forever and ever," the other day, I started crying in the car. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.